let me take this privilege and honor to invite Dr. Rakesh Kumar, whom I would just say that such a multifaceted, I mean, environment when, like Professor Misra has also told, that it is related, it itself is so big and so huge and so interdisciplinary that the heading a institute that is have mandate to just go about the environment. And right now, the Dr. Kumar, who is the director of this institute, for my international the audience and the participants and the speaker, I want them to know that NEERI is has a mandate and is if the first institute that to go about the environment or government consults is NEERI, and who is and Dr. Rakesh Kumar is heading to that prestigious institute. He himself is a very multifaceted researcher, and he brought a lot of laurel before even he became the director of this institute. In 2000, to his name, there are more than 12 patents to his name. He already been awarded to Hiyoshi Think of Ecology Award. He got the VASVIK Award for 2012 for his exemplary work for urban environment improvement and sustainable technology for better environment. And I guess that, when Professor Kumar has told that he is going to talk about climate-linked resilient cities development planning, I was like, oh, this has everything that I can wish for. And I take a pardon from him, because today I invited him that 15 days or 20 days back, because he cannot be available at short notice at all. But I just asked him that please convert your talk same time, same day. But for our conference. So actually, sir, your talk become an anchor, and that's why I could create this all the show within that. And today, if you will go on the Facebook, I am so happy to see that he again got an honorary fellow of International Society for Energy, Environment and Sustainability, 2020. So we all are getting inspired and follow you as a researcher, follow you as the administrator, everything. So now the board is, the stage is yours, sir.
Thank you, Professor Manish, for very kind introduction, and I hope I justify all the praise that you have put on my head today. A couple of things I just wanted to share with you all. My apologies for being a little late due to some link related issues. And it's also because we have International Science Festival going on. So we have more than 25 invites and links. So it was very difficult to figure it out from where to go where. When Professor Manish asked me to speak today on this conference, which is very, very relevant, and the way I look at the kind of people that you have been able to invite, it actually appears very, very impressive. And I look forward to really very exciting discussion that goes on. The topic that I suggested or you agreed, I think I'll try to do my best from my side. So I'll share my screen and then go ahead, okay? So, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Right.
Yeah, now it is full show, so it's fine. Yeah.
Yes. So this is one topic on which our institute has been working for quite some time, and when we were talking about the first major flood which happened in 2005 in Mumbai, it's almost 15 years now. There were a lot of discussion going on that what is that we need to talk about cities. Mumbai being a mega city and it's also called maximum city. When it goes through this kind of experience, a lot of thoughts come in our mind, and all the people who are into administration, science and technology and innovation, they start wondering, did we do something very right, or did we do something very wrong when we created all these mega cities? So as we have gone ahead, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, since 2005, that is my memory of very devastating flood which happened in Mumbai. We have been witnessing this phenomena many multiple places, and world also has moved ahead with a lot of thinking in terms of what is the kind of design of cities that we should think of, and should we link climate right now, or we should think in a normal planning, and then climate could be one of the parameters. So I'll try to reason out what is that which makes sense, and I would leave it to you people. So I have tried to put in data and information together from India as well as from elsewhere, and tried my best to share with you my experience as we go ahead. So when we talk about environmental management, this is something which we created about 6 years back. We called it Center for Strategic Urban Management. We call it CSUM in our institute. And the whole idea was that traditionally all environmental science and engineering people and sustainability persons, we're talking about air pollution, water, wastewater, solid waste, and in some cases biodiversity. But what was missing in between was energy. What was missing was transportation. What was missing was interlinkages from one place to another. So when we talk about cities, we always divided them politically and said these are the places that we need to talk about. So when we talk about basic questions, we look at urban environmental crisis, or is it really a crisis, and are they impacting the local environment and the environment in general? The other one is nature and extent of urban environmental degradation, and what are the underlying causes, and how do we improve them, urban environment health. And these options, when we discuss, many times it's not for green cities, it's not new cities that we are developing. We are always talking about retrofitting existing cities, and that's where the challenge comes in. So as we go into the context and attributes, if you see some of the cities of high population, all the green ones are less than 1%, which has got population of 500 to 750,000. Yellow ones are 1 to 3%, 750 to 100,000, and 3.5% is 1 million to 5 million. Red ones are above 10 million. What you see here is all this orange and yellow, some here and some part of it. Actually, whole of this region is having serious issue from this rising population, and of course this part, some concentrated part where we see this issue becoming a little more complex. When we look at India, basically in terms of specific to our own country, we have 5 mega cities as of now, 2018-19 data, which is what we call it 10 million and more population, and 4 cities which are between 5 to 10 million cities. Now, mind you, these 52 cities and 49 cities that we see it here, which are between 500,000 and 1 million, they would be all transforming another 5-7 years going into the bigger ones, and we will have bigger trouble as we go ahead with these numbers as we move ahead. What is another important issue is that some of the mega cities, when we compare, they are also important cities from the point of view of national GDP, the contribution to GDP that they make. In terms of population and GDP contribution of Mumbai has been significant in India perspective. And what is important therefore is Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi. These are the cities which will become the real driver of GDP in our country. And if we don't take care of them, and the second tier, which are between 1 to 10 million, our goal of reaching out and making our GDP more robust as we go ahead could be a question mark. So when we look at urban environment, of course, we have variable pressure attributes, which is population, poverty. In economic activity, whenever we do, we create waste and emissions, resource use and degradation. The other thing which has started happening in terms of pressure is climate change linked disaster, and some of the other, which is very unique to India and some countries, where non-government institutions, non-profit institutions, and judiciary bring a lot of pressure on the way we run our business, urban cities. Sometimes we also discuss attributes of success and failures. You must have seen this discourse in our country where we say our awareness is not good enough and therefore we are not doing well. And in fact, in some cases, we find that awareness is quite a bit more, and sometimes maybe it is resulting into failures as well. I'll come to those points a little later. Regulation and pricing policy, property rights issue, particularly when you have low income groups, slums, which are there, and we are unable to deal with them in terms of land use planning. And of course, institutional failures, I don't need to get into that in detail. But what is important here is that besides these issues, which are very basic, we have now added climate-linked disturbances and disasters, which can make all the so-called conventional successes and failures into bigger failures as we go ahead and plan about sustainability. So if I take one example of urban flooding due to climate change issues, you see Hyderabad, you see Bangalore, you see Mumbai, and Chennai. We all know Kerala cases. We know. So in last 10 years time, the number of flooding intensity in our cities has been very high. Now, of course, this is happening because of high intensity rainfall, and the way probably we have our drainage system in these places. But what actually happens is that those cities which are very close to sea, where the flooding and I would say vacation of that water which is coming out, that whole place of flood is taking much more time, and that wasn't the case earlier. So every 6 hours we have high and low tide variation. So particularly in cases of Chennai and Mumbai and even Kerala, if water stays for more than 12 hours, it's a cause of concern. Is more to do with the way we have designed our cities and the way we have been managing it. What it also does as we go ahead in terms of effect of climate change, that it starts doing infrastructure damages. Either we have not planned well, or the way we have managed they create. So you have damage to transport systems, buildings, all the utilities such as power and water supply, hospitals, schools, offices, which are your real infrastructure which runs the system in disaster situation. They get into serious trouble. And of course, when that happens, the goods and food supply infrastructure gets affected. The third category, which we normally neglect, but people like us and some others who are very sensitive and understand this, and I'm not saying others don't, but yes, ecosystem damages are actually looked at and evaluated, and I would say recorded much later. But ecosystem damages in these cases have been also very significant. And as we go ahead, we find that more and more of species extinction and wildfires and floods and droughts, these cycles are becoming very common, and these ecosystems are getting damaged, or I would say damaged in a way that they can't possibly recover. There are many of them which are very resilient and they can come back, but few of the places they see almost situation where it can't come back. The fourth one is where air and water quality gets degraded, and because of that, you have human health impact, increase in allergens and harmful air pollutants, increase in ozone, heavy intense downpours leads to related activities, waterborne illnesses, and drinking water quality issues. So as we go ahead, we find that almost each and every aspect of these finally results into increased diseases, and that's where from human angle, most of the time we keep ourselves on the top of the pyramid to assess whether everything is going right or not. So increased diseases for human actually starts telling us that there is something which is not going right. So if you look at health impacts of climate change, you have a whole lot of things which are happening. There's nothing which is left. And I will not go into detail, but it's very important for all of us who understand these, that if I start something which is interlinked so well in terms of its resilience, but if we break the resilience, it will also start impacting everything which was connected to it. The other thing which happens is microclimate challenge or microclimate changes which are not easily studied. Most of us, most of the scientists will find that we are looking at macro area. So we are talking about 500 square kilometers, 1,000, 2,000 square kilometers area and how things happen. But the real impact is happening now inside cities, where every 2 by 2 kilometers grade you see variation in meteorological conditions, temperature, and also in terms of the way wind moves. And all of that actually leads to vector-borne diseases as well as water-borne diseases, the way the functionality of environment happens. And it has been seen in 3 such recent studies. There is one on slum design of Mumbai, the second one in Delhi, where they looked at the areas which are less dense and more dense, and the way buildings have been designed, more number of diseases or more prevalence of certain diseases are being seen, including tuberculosis. So in microclimate changes, if you see these, when we build this kind of thing, you see a hotter temperature up to 3 degree to 10 degrees centigrade. And these are some numbers which have been verified recently, and we find that is something which we'll have to deal with differently, the way we are building or the way we are managing. So if you see the table here, the fourth one is actually a rural area where the normal temperature in a distance of about 30-35 kilometers, I'm saying, from Mumbai, is about 30 degree, but other areas it goes as high as 35. So 5 to 6 degree temperature range is very common, and depending upon the season and the wind speed, this could go as high as 10 degrees centigrade. So when we do all of that, it leads to high mortality in terms of health impacts. Morbidity is definitely there. I will not go into these numbers because these are again estimated numbers. There is a lot of research which needs to be done to understand morbidity and mortality because of these environmental parameters or climatic parameters, and get validation of all of these numbers as we move forward. So is there a limit? And that's the question that we need to ask as a community of scientific people and researchers in academic institutions. That overall, when we look at environment, we have issues of assimilative and supportive capacity definition. Now that we are talking about climate change, is that something which is changing our assimilative capacity of our environment, where whatever we generate in terms of air pollution, water, wastewater, and solid waste, is it getting assimilated at exactly the rate at which nature does it? And similarly, all the supportive capacity of the nature, which gives us all that, which we take and support ourselves in a way to improve our lifestyle and our well-being. So when we look at these, is there any way to define this limit? And this has been debated for a few decades now, but I would actually suggest that sometimes so-called zero discharge policy can lead to not zero discharge in terms of liquid zero discharge, can lead to some more air pollution problem or more land related issues. So can we do something which is manageable and we do in a way that is sustainable over a period of time? So what do we do? Should we plan, and how do we plan it, and which way do we go? So when we look at all of these so-called broader territorial perspective for cities to attain economies of scale, I would say I'll take an example here. For example, recently Government of India has announced a commission for air quality management in NCR and adjoining 4-5 states. Now, earlier, if you remember, all the air quality related decisions of Delhi government, which is state government and the central government and adjoining area, they were all on the basis of political boundaries. Knowing very well that air pollution possibly can't be managed like this, and we can't be blaming each other in terms of taking decision. So we need to look at territorial aspects of the pollutants and whatever we are putting in the atmosphere, and then take a strategic decision in mitigating all of these. So as we go ahead, we start looking at city which can possibly be defined on the basis of all the inputs, which is resources which we use for supporting the city. And when we use all those resources, whatever comes out, how does it get assimilated in the system? So the definition of resilience says the ability of any urban system to withstand and to recover quickly through multiple shocks and stresses, and to maintain continuity of services. And all of these goes to, it's a no-brainer, but it's very important to know that we understand local climate, identify vulnerabilities, formulate adaptation plan, assess and prioritize, implement, monitor, evaluate, and review our progresses. So as we go ahead to look at risk assessment of each of the decisions, And finally, we do resource efficiency and adaptation planning. So if I granulate all of those bigger concepts into smaller things, so key challenges and opportunities is something which we need to identify. So I need to worry about whether traffic jams are creating more problem, or is it BS3 or BS4 or fuel quality which is creating the problem. That's something which needs to be analyzed. Some of the numbers which come out very clearly, that the difference between shifting from BS4 to BS6 standard, which is almost equivalent to Euro 4 and Euro 6 standard, in current times, in short time, between 5 to 10 years time, our benefit is not going to be more than 3 to 5%. It's mainly because the older vehicles would continue to be there on the road, and our traffic jams will continue to give you more and more emission by way of not moving, by way of just burning the fuel at one single location. So if I improve my mobility, I am going to get benefit almost in the range of about 12 to 20%. And that's something which we also have to plan in terms of the steps that we take. Again, poor urban infrastructure, I don't need to go into urban heat island issues, waste handling facility, housing, healthcare, everything. But each of these are actually leading to overall impact of how do we make our urban systems more and more resilient. So for each of these, we could have solutions like intelligent transportation systems, use of mass rapid transit system, work from home. That's what we are doing now. And looking at circular economy and a green economy in a very different way, designing buildings which are green. And I'm very happy to share here with other colleagues from other parts of the world. India has probably the largest number of green buildings in the world, which is not something which was which was easy to think about 10 years back. But the way our environmental regulations which have worked, and the push which has gone to builders and the communities, we have the largest number of platinum rated lead buildings, as well as Griha rating which is given. Renewables, of course, we are again doing very well, and again countries should take pride in saying that we have taken a leadership position in terms of using renewables. When the other ones where we are not doing very well, and that's where we need to think more, like sewage infrastructure, sanitation, hygiene, suitable site for solid waste management, and rack pickers management. So some cities have given good examples, like Indore, to some extent Bangalore, and some smaller towns, in terms of handling their solid waste. But when it comes to sewage conveyance and treatment, we are still struggling. Only about 30% of our sewage actually gets treated, and only about 40% gets collected. So we need to rethink in a very different way, those who work in this domain. Can we, in place of normal deep sewer system, can we have shallow sewer system which requires less energy and easy to maintain? Retrofitting all the sewerage infrastructure is a big issue for bigger cities, and therefore when we talk about making resilient cities, all of these become the starting point of for any city to look good and move forward. How are things happening across the world? So I'll give you some examples as we go ahead in this. Cities across the United States have begun to plan for climate change, taking steps to improve resilience. And this resilience, although the administration in the US has not been signing on certain accord of climate change, but internally there have been a lot of work that has got ahead, and people are doing a lot of work in this direction. So city of Pittsburgh has already planned, they call it resilience strategy for themselves. So here what they call it P4 principle, where people are put first, and which says that Pittsburgh will empower all residents to contribute to thriving and supportive communities by ensuring that basic needs are met. What it actually means is that you are creating an inclusive city where everyone has equal rights and equal access to resources. Then identify places, what is that we want to do for residents in terms of social cohesion, connectivity, public and ecological health, protect against current and future risk, and so that they design, scale, and maintain infrastructure for current and future needs. Thirdly, plan it into as part of P4. So third pillar is planet, and the last one is performance, where you monitor each and every aspect of it over a period of time. So as we go ahead, our decision making is on the basis of these P4 principles. Again, in this case, if I have to do granulation, so in people case, you have housing, health, food safety, education, emergency preparedness, things like that. In performance, you have entrepreneurship, civic engagement, measurements. Places, you have transportation, infrastructure, mixed uses, vacant land, green spaces, and things related to that. And in planet, you have water, local and renewable energy, resource efficiency, natural infrastructure, and resilient design. So when somebody sits like this in a city planning for each of these, it is a massive effort. And this is where I also wanted to highlight, it is not the work of one single person or one single discipline. Here you will actually need almost 10 to 15 disciplines to come together and address all of these P4 parameters. So when we look at some of the similar work that's being done for United Nations, they're again saying something similar. Wordings can be slightly different, but as you say, these are four principles again. It says assess impacts, vulnerability, and risk, where initial assessment is needed for extent to which the climate change is affecting or will affect natural systems. Then you do plan for adaptation, where we identify those activities and appraise them through assessing cost and benefit so that prioritization happens. Third one, of course, is to implement each one of them, these all projects, programs, and policies. And finally, monitor. That's something which does not happen in many countries like ours as well. Despite having programs, the monitoring aspect is poor, and that's why we don't see the outcome as much as it should be. So similarly, Australia is moving ahead in this case, where they have created a framework where cooperative actions between Australia's national and sub-national governments are going ahead, and they are integrating business and communities together on climate change impacts and adaptation options. This is also leading to adaptation information and tools needed by decision makers. Whatever scientists and academicians say, it should make sense to decision makers. And that's one big area where we need to work much more in country like ours as well. And of course, framework has prioritized national adaptation, understanding capacity, identify and reduce vulnerability of multiple sectors. As I said earlier, sectors in case of Pittsburgh. Identify each of these future challenges, and then keep working with community. Don't leave community outside, which is not going to make it sustainable. So when we look at European Union on the other side, we are looking at again similar principle. If you see overall, it is talking about adaptation in the Covenant of Mayors framework, which has happened in 2003, bridge knowledge gap, further develop climate adapt as the one-stop shop. That's being done in Europe. Facilitate climate proofing of common agriculture policy, cohesion policy, and common fisheries policy. More resilient infrastructure, and promote insurance rather than financial product. Coming to India, I'm happy to also share with you that India has also proactively taken a lot of programs where we call it Climate Resilient City Action Plan, where there are 9 different steps, which uses 3 different phases of analyze, act, and accelerate. Udaipur, Siliguri, Coimbatore, and Rajkot have become some of the, I would say, example cities which are taking up these projects and going ahead. And some of these activities have led to some estimation of how much CO2 is going to get reduced. So it's like about 1.7 million tons of CO2 equivalent for Coimbatore, about 439,000 tons of CO2 for Rajkot, and similarly for Siliguri, which is small town. And the last one is also Udaipur, which is committed to reduce about 225,000 tons of CO2 gas equivalent. The other initiatives in India, which is happening and which has happened, is looking at Asian cities climate change resilient network under the other cities like Surat, Pune, Kochi, or Ludhiana has been enlisted, And the key attributes are resource constraint analysis, economic robustness, conditions of economic development and climate change adaptation, role of local and spatially diverse processes, and health. Now, what is the real major bottleneck? And that's something which we have to internally debate and discuss, because a country like ours doesn't have that kind of resources where we can do all of it at the same time. So we need to start looking at the climate models which are coming from various places. So when we have this such wide variation in results of climate models, we need to start looking at how do we deal with it at our level, for our country, and especially for downscaling of the model, basically. So that our mitigation and adaptation measures are very targeted, and it gives us the output which we desire. Similarly, difference in climate consistent between gradual and sudden onset of impacts, which happens in city level. What is that we can do immediately, so that our action plans need not wait for another 5-10 years for all the cities which I talked about in the beginning is ready. So when we look at these things, ways cities can build more climate resilient neighborhoods, they can actually do it by using urban climate resilient action. These are 4 ways, but there could be multiple ways as well. So tailor early warning system to meet the needs of vulnerable people, and all those who work in the domain of modeling and simulation, they can actually be very helpful for the city planners. Map city services and access to amenities, what gets impacted when and how. Is something, if it is known, the chances of the impacts management is going to be much more easier. Build long-term resilience into infrastructure and planning. So if I'm building infrastructure which is close to the seashore, I need to know what can go wrong and how and when. And therefore that planning is important. And of course, as I keep repeating, we have to have inclusive culture which takes into account all of these together. So some of the green infrastructure, if I have to just do listing of few of them, if not all. So manage flooding with infiltration based practices, floodplain management, open space preservation. Second one is prepare for drought in the similar way, which we understand. Reduce urban heat island effect by planting trees and building green roofs. Lower building energy demands by reducing indoor temperatures and shading. Spend less energy managing water, which is a no-brainer, but it's very important to understand where we store and how. Protect coastal areas through multiple methods. There are natural methods, and then there are where you can't do natural methods. There are constructed method which has to be also used. Modeling tools become very important here. As I said, use of modeling techniques from lab to lab. Particularly, I'm saying when we want to bring it to a smaller planning area. When we do large scale, it's all okay. But when we want to do a smaller city area, we need to be a little more robust, and more researchers need to work in that direction. Future planning and design of infrastructure, as I said earlier, based on temperature, wind speed, wind direction, humidity, and solar radiation, what kind of infrastructure we want to create. So that's something which is very important. As I said earlier, GCM downscaling is very important. Recently, for the flood analysis for Patna, when we did this work with 4PI in Bangalore, we could even do downscaling up to about 3 to 3 kilometers, 3 by 3 kilometers from the global climate model. So that's the kind of work which is required, and it was getting validated very well, the way we have been able to calibrate model and then use it in the real sense. Just to give you example, a few more slides now, how cities in different cities are doing what. So for building climate resilient city, like Chicago has started supporting vertical farms through better zoning. I'll not read all of these, but that's what they had started doing it. Mississauga in Canada, they are doing low impact development standards for cleaner and drinking water and less flooding, so that their design is such that local flooding is avoided. Gibson's in Canada, again taking advantage of the lower cost and higher resilience of natural systems. So they're building more and more natural systems to manage eco assets, and also municipal infrastructure in this case. St. Paul in United States, Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, establishing an urban ecosystem which was not something which was bad, but they now understand the importance of it. So now we have urban wetlands, and wetland park is being created, and such biodiversity spots are being created within the city. That's also working out for them. Again, in Iowa, they're using historical data to build robustness in the face of flooding. If happens, what do we do and how do we do it? So at the end, my key conclusion is to look at climate resilience in built in the planning and development of society. So all the architects, landscape planners, those who understand water, wastewater, climate models, society, and social scientists, as well as decision maker, have to come together to look at climate resilience for the city together. And for this, we need to use various approaches, including but not limited to, such as circular economy, carrying capacity approaches. Many of you who are not aware, our National Green Tribunal asked that we should do carrying capacity study for almost more than 100 cities now, which is a bit difficult thing to do in very short term period. But the intention is right. We need to understand what is the carrying capacity of our places that we live, and are we overloading them and unable to manage them. Urgent need to develop early warning systems, as I said earlier. And some of the modern tools and techniques such as CFD and WRF can be used to mitigate the impacts of climate change at micro and meso scales. And that's something which we have not been doing it in recent times. I know only one builder who started selling his flats based on CFD analysis, which was very unique. And normally the way people describe that, look, you have a garden view or a lake view or the sea view. This person was running a CFD model and telling them, look, this is how the air in your flat moves, and outside how it moves. So this is how you are going to be, more comfortable in your house. Knowledge derivation from ancient architecture is something which we need to again go back. People keep talking about it, but currently, if you see, it is seen that all the buildings, whether it is south of the country or the north of the country, they have a similar ways of constructing them. And actually some of them have faced problem only because we have not identified the real reason for certain kind of architecture which was prevalent say in Kerala, and what was prevalent say Leh and Ladakh. So that's something which is very important, and it's also important to codify them. Build confidence that if you're doing it in this way, you're not doing anything wrong. So without, even if somebody quotes is fine, but we should not be repeating CPWD style of all buildings across country. We need to have our local knowledge which drives our architecture. And the last one, we must look at nature again, and nature drive tools which have been really helpful. And our institute has been able to do some very good, nice work. I can take pride in that. With treatment and related treatment, and it has worked out well. And I am sure nature can actually provide all the solutions that we want. So thank you very much for having me in your seminar and webinar. And if there is any question, I can take it later or now.
Hello.
Yeah, actually, considering your busyness and all, I cannot dare to keep you. So let me take the questions, and then yeah, we will move to the another session. So the one question that Dr. Leela Kaur has asked, that has India started the work on working on climate resilient city policy?
Yes. So many of you would know, but almost I know there may be more cities, but there are at least 5 or 6 cities in India who have started making their climate resilient plans for their own cities. Yes.
Another question is that for microclimate change, like many cities are getting old, and how India is going to fight with urban heatland island effect?
So that's the question is not difficult, but it's the implementation is difficult. And as I said, we have many cities which are actually comprising of villages. So inside there are even in Delhi, I think there are 10-12 villages, and there the development control rules are different and the other areas different. So retrofitting is one of the major challenge. But yes, if we make them aware and we start doing small ward by ward planning rather than doing the whole of the city, particularly for mega cities, going to be different.
Actually, you answered the next question just now, because Enejika Sebek, I think she is international participant. She asked that, thank you very much for your helpful overview of global urban resilience. Since 50% of Indian population lives in the village, can we learn from small models and smart villages? And you already told it, actually.
Yes.
Then the Muhammad Yunus asking that, does NEERI conduct training on water quality management?
Yeah, we do. We do
So,
training. We do training in a big way on air, water, everything. Hands-on trainings are stopped right now, but we will start that also very soon. Yes.
there are many such questions actually. Is government to plan Griha norms essential?
No, it is voluntary even now.
Yeah, I think
even when the norms are voluntary, the number of buildings which are being built with green norms are very high. Is highest in the world, I'm saying. It's true.
Yeah, actually that was the again question, and which for me also it was very surprising to know that India has the maximum number of green buildings. Actually, that provides us opportunity, because when we grow, at that time, if new technology comes, it is an opportunity to include them. And that's why the Korea has shown much better internet facility in the world, because they were progressing, they made their infrastructure late. So, and we are later than them. So we have the opportunity to make more better and resilient systems. I would, even if there is some more, but I think I would just say that very fascinating and to the point. And actually now, even if India is going to remain a country of villages, but the most of the population is based in urban area. And the vertical growth we are going to see much, because in Gandhinagar earlier they used to say bungalow. Now no more bungalow. It is flats. So this is I have noted a lot of points, and but the interesting was that to see that how you have studied the US cities, and then I mean the several the aspects were there. It was not only based on India. The several good examples were there. And you even correlated with that how P4 principle and then other principles are the same, in fact. And I am very big fan of this taking knowledge from ancient culture or the architecture. Though I don't have that much ability to learn, but I think I always see there must be something that we can learn. Yeah. And so that is the really great. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us, for giving a good start. Well, I will get back to you and with those whatever that we are taking lessons from here.
Right. Thank you very much for having me. Really, it was a pleasure connecting with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.